So I'm so happy to be here with three people who are working on endeavors that are going to layer into the city, currently working, future working. So with that, why don't each of you tell us what you're doing, how you're doing it, a little bit about your brand. Should we start with you, David, at the end?
Sure. Thank you, Alia. How you doing? Good to see everyone. David Gudstadt. I am the founder and CEO of a project here in Philadelphia called Fiddler Club. We were the first, I believe we still are the only private members club, and we really call it a lifestyle club, to integrate best-in-class offerings within what we call three key verticals. So there's the social piece, which is, think of it like a Soho house. And then we actually integrated not an afterthought of a fitness offering, but a full-scale 30,000 square foot fitness offering. And then because that wasn't difficult enough, we tacked on 34,000 feet of workspace. So the way I would describe it, and don't overthink the mechanics of it, is if Equinox, Soho House, and Neue House had a baby, this is what it would look like. So we also have 14 hotel rooms and a rather large event space. And just quick background, we have a couple current and former colleagues from Equinox, which was my prior role. I actually was responsible for the founding and creation of the Equinox Hotel platform, and was kind of pulled to Philadelphia, and was very lucky to be able to start an exciting project. And we've been open really since the early part of 19, and we'll get into more later. Thank you.
I'm Jen Weber. I'm the Director of Development for Ash NYC, which is a vertically integrated boutique hotel company. We do mixed-use development too, but increasingly it is hospitality through and through. We have a handful of operating properties in Providence, Detroit, New Orleans. We just acquired a property here in Philadelphia, and we have a hotel under construction in Baltimore, so rapidly growing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul McGowan. I'm the president and founder of Study Hotels, which originated at Yale University back in 2009. We opened our second hotel here at the Study at University City back in January of 2017, in a great location between the University of Pennsylvania and Drexel University, and very pleased to be here and joining this panel today.
So tell me, or tell us rather, why Philadelphia? So many big urban locations, so much activity all over the country. What brought you to Philly? It's special. We know it's special. Some of you are living the special, but what drove your decision making?
I could talk for a while about this, but bottom line is the concept was designed to accommodate upper tier college markets, and it came from trying to figure out how to make a full service hotel work in a market like New Haven, which historically had never performed well at all. And so finding that balance and recognizing at the time that there was a pent-up need for high-quality lodging in markets like that. It took off, very quickly. And at the time, my thinking was maybe 10 or 15 markets in the country, and Philadelphia was a natural. And University City, in particular, stood out as a market that we needed to be in. That collided with the interests of John Fry, the president of Drexel, who was frequently staying with us at Yale University for squash events. John and I got to know each other, talked quite a bit. And I think, arguably, we have one of the best hotel sites on the East Coast, and we're thrilled to take that opportunity and enter the city and bring our offering to the market. So,
we've been looking at Philly for probably 2 or 3 years. A lot of you live here, so you already know. But from our perspective, we look for historic building stock, a city with some grit. The city has everything, right? It's big city, little town, strong anchors, cultural scene, a food scene. It's proximate to New York. It's proximate to Baltimore, D.C. It's got it all. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us. And we've looked at a bunch of different things over the course of the past 2 years, had a couple different buildings under contract. We own one now and continuing to look for more keys in this market.
So the quick answer is I live in Philly, and the site happens to be less than 2 blocks from where I live. So There's something to be said for substituting that for a commute to New York, 2 or 3 days a week. But the real answer is, in my past life, really as a business development person and focused on growing a brand for Equinox most recently, and going to visit all of these quote unquote hot cities, right? The Nashvilles, the Austins, the Portlands, and you go there and you're like, these aren't even real cities yet. And Philadelphia has been perennially this almost like B-list or second-tier city. And I was like, no more. And so the idea was, let's bring the first and the best and the only here to Philadelphia. And it was kind of all systems go from the very first idea. Enthusiastic investors, enthusiastic landlord, and we did it. And if you guys haven't seen it, I'd encourage all of you to come check us out.
And they've been busy. I've been stalking a little bit, and considering we're coming out of COVID, we're going back to this world. You've had weddings recently. I mean, everything that I see on your feed, your programming, the activations, it's kind of back to very active business, right?
Yeah, it's been really comforting to see that we lived through this awful 18 months, but I think it taught us a lot of things, and the need for human connection is incredibly important. And kind of creating venues where people can do that, and I don't want to use the word safely because I think there are plenty of places that can do it safely, but that can do it authentically. And again, there's a lot of talk about building communities, and you can't force it; it just has to happen organically. But it is happening, and it's been really great to see just people rallying around not just Fiddler Club, but a lot of the things that are important to them, in Philadelphia, whether it be, a special restaurant or, their favorite studio or whatever that is. And I'm sure it's happening across the country, but we're seeing it here in Philly for sure.
Yeah, I think the community piece is huge, right? We've come from all over. We all have our neighborhood takeout, the restaurant that we all went rushing back to as soon as we could. And it's fantastic when you have that offering or those people that you can go back to and that look to you and want to support you. So I'm so happy to hear that. A little bit more before we switch. You also have the Fiddler Foundation. So obviously, community is very important to what you do. Are you able to talk a little bit about that? What is your priority? What are you looking to support or achieve through the foundation?
Sure. So one of the things that, again, I think made us unique when I launched the club was community and foundation. The foundation was always part of it from the very beginning. And, we didn't invent the idea, obviously. I was actually truly inspired by another club, a sister club in San Francisco called the Battery. And, one of the things that really resonated with me was they had this thing called Battery Powered. And, if you read about it, I mean, the amount of money that their members have contributed to a whole variety of causes is just, inspiring. And so, for me, the idea to be able to open this club that is diverse, that looks like what the city of Philadelphia looks like, that was designed and programmed for what people want today and not some of the clubs from 100 or 200 or 300 years ago, was really important. And so the foundation was a critical part of that. And we've used the foundation to support all sorts of amazing causes, everything from ranging from education to arts. The arts, and I know Tom is going to be speaking about the arts in Philadelphia, but has been a huge component of what our offering is. We have an artist in residence program. We've got, on our second round of artists, you can come through our workspace called Offsite and see 100 plus works of art. We have some private collection art, and across the board we've given sponsorships and residencies to all sorts of interesting people, Olympic hopefuls, people doing amazing things on the nonprofit side. We actually donate office space to a number of nonprofits, and then obviously when it comes to kind of gifting, hosting events and donating space. So it's been a lot, and we tallied it up in our first year, even through COVID. We had over $1.5 million of whether it was actual cash or in kind. Amazing. Or other value to through members and events and donations, et cetera. So really important and going to be incredibly powerful going forward too.
That's fantastic. It's also, a credit to the work that you do, that people saw the value in supporting. Moving on, Jen. So, COVID hits, people start doing yoga, get into meditation. Making sourdough or beer bread, depending, organizing their files. And you represent a group that just, went and bought a piece of real estate in the middle of a global pandemic. No big deal. Talk to us a little about it. What was the impetus? What were you looking for? What drew you to it?
Sure. Well, full disclosure, when COVID hit, we were in the middle of a fundraise for a different piece of property, which we canceled. So it wasn't all sunshine and roses. And by the time that we bought Alexander Inn, which is the first operating hotel that we've bought previously, it's all been sort of full gut rehab, change of use. So I think that is an important thing that came out of COVID, as this is potentially where we should focus our growth. There was some light at the end of the tunnel, though, by the time that we acquired, which we did on December 31st. We had vaccine trials. They were very effective. I think there was a lot of, we'll get there. This isn't going to be dark forever. Ash, we are all a collection of urbanists. Nobody believed the narrative that cities were dead by any stretch of the imagination. Frankly, we thought that was an opportunity. Like, if that's where people's brain is, then there's room here, right, for us to capitalize and acquire and grow while people are looking at suburban markets, or who knows. I can't imagine thinking cities would die, but there was that big article in the New York Times, right? So that's what we were thinking when this happened. Again, we've been looking at Philly for a couple years. Alexander Inn is it's a 12th and Spruce. It's a 50-key operating hotel. It has a deep kind of legacy in the neighborhood that we wanted to expand and continue and give that hotel kind of a second life. So that's what we were thinking.
All of you are familiar with Alexander Inn? Everyone, the locals? Yes? I'm seeing nodding heads. Okay. And as far as the project goes, and this is my own ignorance, are you you're transforming it? Are you enhancing it? What do you, because, I'm familiar with your work in Detroit and New Orleans, and there's always that magical Ash spin. Are you able to talk about what you're doing to this one?
Yeah, right now we are certainly in stabilization mode, right? Like, Philly is one of the later cities to reopen, so it's probably a couple months behind kind of where some of the other markets that we're working in are. We have not begun to conceptualize what it looks like in this next phase, but we're getting there. And the general idea of Ash, right, is to create really, really experiential spaces. So when someone walks into the door, whether they're a local or a guest, we want to take them on a journey. And that could be back in time, it could be all number of things. But one of the things that, as we conceptualize spaces, and it's what's the nuance of a place. Like, Philadelphia is more than the top 5 tourist attractions. There's a lot more here. Locals know that. Visitors rarely delve further than that. And that's what we're trying to help folks do. So how do you peel the layers back and really start to understand the city? How do we help show someone that through both our operations and our service and our hospitality, but also through our physical space? So the Alexander Inn has a deep history. The neighborhood has a deep history. Philadelphia has a deep history. How do we show and experience that to our guests, and how do we become the neighborhood's living room at the same time? So we've got this really great blend of locals and visitors. So we haven't started full-blown kind of design and conceptualization, but it is on the horizons and all the wheels are spinning.
I'll tell you, there are a few people in this audience who would have happily gone to the neighborhood's living room last night. 10 p.m. Monday, Philadelphia, looking for that one last beverage. And it was like, oh, where's that one place we could go? The people I'm talking to know who I'm referring to, and I'm right, yes? So we're all excited to see what you do with it. And, even like when we talk to designers, they often reference Ash, New York, and I think, what you do with storytelling and you take it past just the topical decorative abilities. Of course, that gingham is epic, but,
And very hard to replace. Sorry, our director of operations is over there.
We might have a person who could help you with some of that. I got a guy. But anyway, we're all excited, and I don't know, maybe at some point we can all come back and visit you when your neighborhood's living room is ready.
We'd love that.
So, Paul, how do you feel? You spoke a little bit to what drove the intention behind study hotels. And, you know, certainly with your background of developing larger brands, bigger boxes, I think that was always something that I was curious about. So it's interesting to hear the need. How do you feel about like the competitive landscape right now? You know, we've got the Moxies of the world. You've got, you know, Generator. You've got Freehand. You have Graduate. And, you know, some of them talk about, you know, addressing the psychographic. Some of them talk about addressing the functional need of being near a university campus. What is your take or spin that you're continuing to push forward that'll help differentiate?
So we get pulled into this dialogue quite often.
All the time, I bet.
And,
Sorry.
It's okay. One of the things that I decided when I left Starwood back in 2002, I had quite a bit of brand exposure and experience and working on quite a number of hotels around the world. I think I opened 14 W hotels in 2 years and had enough to go out and do my own thing. But when this real estate opportunity came to me at Yale University, I was at the same time looking around at schools with my daughter and staying in some pretty bad accommodations at some of the best schools on the East Coast. And so the opportunity presented itself quite clearly. And then as I got into this opportunity at Yale University, it was a near obsolete hotel built in 1961. And I had to think about how I could balance, as I mentioned before, the investment in this institution, which is one of the top in the country, in a market that had never performed better than 60% occupancy and $105 in rate. And it was very clear, and I wasn't the first one to think about this, but in many university markets, limited service hotels would do very well because the cycles in the school schedule and so forth didn't really support a full service model. So beyond that, I was dealing with Yale University, which pretty conservative, kind of understated, not pretentious in any way. And I had to figure out how to live up to the standards of the university. I had Robert Stern walking past the building every day as he was going to the architecture school when it was under construction. I was working with Charles Gwathmey at the time, who made this comment to me one day that in 25 years he had never stayed in New Haven. He'd always take a car back to New York City. So that was fueling this idea that a quality product would do well. And as it turns out, there was a significant pent-up demand. And so the way we approached it was, I looked at this proliferation of branding at the time, and it's even more today, as you've mentioned quite a few brands since then. But my thinking was, rather than join that dialogue and talk more and more and more and try to prescribe the guest experience through the brand, let's just back away from it and think about what people are looking for. So a great shower, a leather chair and ottoman in every guest room, the ability to read, relax, reflect, all these things that we came up with to simplify the guest experience, and then take that into the service philosophy of not trying to say too much, speak too often, and dictate the experience. These university markets, and we're fortunate that with the University of Chicago opening just after Labor Day, we've been able to keep that going through COVID, but to be invited to the center of a campus and to take everything that university offers, the character, the personality is so unique and differentiated at each of these markets, is a tremendous opportunity for us. And we do our best to integrate the product into each of these markets by bringing in cultural offerings and all the things that we do. Philadelphia was an amazing opportunity for us, both two universities, this abundance of high, top-tier craftsmen in this market. In fact, to this point, we have one of the local glass studios here, John Pomp, is doing our light fixtures, our chandeliers in Chicago. So, I mean, the resources that we found here are traveling with us because it was so rich. And it was a great way for us to connect to the local market. So in terms of the competition, we're differentiated in that we're opportunistic, we're not strategic, we're not trying to be in 50, 60, 70 markets. We're just started a project at Johns Hopkins, which will be opening a year from now, and we'll just move slowly and integrate ourselves into the community and expect to be there for 25, 30 years, not a flash in the pan kind of brand. So I guess the short answer to your question is we try not to participate in the dialogue because we really don't offer the same kind of product, the same kind of experience.
No, it's totally fair. A million years ago, I went to UVA with my parents to drop my sister off, and we stayed in a motel couldn't tell you the name. And you know, you think back to it, and the carpet was a specific color, and there was the quilted bedspread, you know, the diamond quilting that was, you know, had to go on the bed. And, you know, fast forward to often when I do think of study hotels, I'm so glad you said it. The first picture that comes to my mind is the leather chair and the ottoman in the room. And, you know, we as a designer, you think about these moments, or what are those components that associate in your mind to a brand. And I always think of the chair and the ottoman. I've never stayed in one. God knows I've looked at enough of photos though. And then I'm like, all right, well, Moxie is not doing that, not going to try and do that. We're going to, you know, make you turn a cartwheel and hang upside down to take your chair off the peg wall, and it's gonna be great. But I love it. I love that you know, it's not the jam, and it's great, and it's so appropriate to your sites, and I will now have to stay at one. So we have a few more minutes. Any questions from the audience? It's a very well-behaved crowd. It's also very early. I suspect once the tea and mixology gets going, it may be a different conversation. But any questions? Yes.
Deals always come back. That's my experience. I mean, things that you think are dead resurrect themselves all the time. So we're looking at a piece of property in the South right now that we looked at like 18 months ago. Seller came back. Happens regularly. So I suspect those deals will come back, and they may be the right deal at the time, whenever they do. We'll see. That's probably not a very satisfying answer to your question. I'm satisfied. Okay, great.
It's like no design is ever dead, right? It just comes back a different way. Makes someone else's life difficult in a different way, and makes someone happy in a very different way. No, not quilted bedspreads. We're done with that. Totally agree.
Or low-rise jeans.
Oh, that too. I feel like that's a whole other panel. What are the things that should never, ever come back? But with that, thank you. Thank you. So nice to be with all three of you. I'm sure there are many people who are going to want to chat with you in the course of the day.
Thank
Good.
you.